It's a big deal for a boy from the Midwest. Growing up, you always counted down the days until summer. Then, you counted down the days until camp. Time away from family, the town, everything you knew. You got to escape into the woods for a week with a lot of kids your age. Sure, there were counselors, but they didn't have that much power over you. The counselors ended up being only a couple years older than you, so what were they going to do? Whoever decided it was smart to release a bunch of kids into the woods for a week, well, I don't know if I want to shake their hand or lock them up. Of course, there were rules, curfews to get to your cabin, meal times, and repercussions if you stepped out of line. If you were caught, that is. But as kids, that didn't matter. It felt like freedom, and that was enough. Sam and I were 15 years old when we went camping for the last time. We didn't have that many camps left in us anyway, but different life events made it so we never went back. At the time, we both knew that would probably be the case, so we made a pact to make this the best week of camp ever. We thought it was going to be. Until kids started going missing.
Stop. Do we have to listen to this one? It's just, I don't remember it. My mind is telling me not to. It hasn't done that with any of the others. So is it just possible to skip this one? That was worth a shot. Sadly, stop smiling. Welcome to the Beating Heartland, created by Denver Baughman. Episode 8, The Summer Camp.
Our school set up a camp each summer. The principal, the cigar-chewing, terrifying one, always thought it was a clever idea. It bonded the class together or something. So the school always put into their budget a week of camp. Usually it was grouped 2 years at a time. This year, however, it seemed like the budget was smaller because it was in groups of 3. Ages 13 through 15 for Sam and me. So, a lot more kids each week, and a lot less space. On top of that, the campground where we usually went suffered a terrible forest fire, wiping out most of the buildings. The school had to make last-minute changes to an even smaller campground. More kids, smaller space, a perfect opportunity for chaos. The bus ride was cramped. They tried to fit everyone, teachers and students alike, into one bus, but finally realized that they would have to take some cars to follow behind. On the way, Sam was rambling about the stuff we should try to get away with. I brought silly string, and we can definitely use that on one of the girls' cabins. I also got some duct tape and an air horn. Hey, you can fit the pieces together yourself. Oh, I almost forgot. The fireworks. He pulled out a large pack of heavy-duty fireworks from his backpack. I quickly motioned for him to hide them. He just chuckled. Come on, this is gonna be awesome! I don't feel good about this. What do you mean? You love pranks. Not that, I just feel like this is my last trip. Something's going to happen. That heavy feeling of yours is back? Look, has that thing ever been right? You always have it, and everything is always fine. I don't think that's true. Well, as far as I can remember, anyway. That's the problem. As far as we can remember. Sam gave me a puzzled look, but continued messing with his supplies. Suddenly, Mrs. Nevins, our science teacher, appeared out of nowhere, standing in the aisle. Where had she come from? We'll be arriving soon. I would like to remind you boys that everyone is expected to put their best foot forward this week. We don't want anything to happen that will tarnish the school's good name. Behave. Why are you telling us that? There's a bunch of 13-year-olds back there. Hound them. She glared. As I said, we wouldn't want anyone getting hurt or worse this week, would we? Enjoy, boys. This is going to be a week to remember. She left, quickly shuffling back to pick on the 13-year-olds. Sam and I just shivered. When she left, I found myself looking out the window. We were in the woods. Deep woods. The sun was shooting rays through the leaves. And there was a man, standing deep in the trees. I blinked and he was gone. Had he been motioning for me to come with him? I shook my head, banishing the thought. Not this week. This week, nothing was going to go wrong. I wasn't going to worry about my monsters. I was going to enjoy it with Sam, because it might be the last chance I got. I turned to Sam. We're using the fireworks, Sam. Attaboy! He smiled. Camp Rivers Run. Camping comes in all forms. Tents and roughing it in nature, or a glamorous woodland resort. Rivers Run was somewhere in the middle. One large cabin and rec center mixed with several other small buildings nestled next to the Mississippi River. It was honestly a beautiful spot. During the day, that is. At night, well, it was in the middle of nowhere, in the woods. Any sound could be harmless or the last sound you'll ever hear. We got there early Monday morning. Blue herons were flying low along the river, looking for fish. The bugs were miserable, and the sound of trees was almost drowned out by the birds, cicadas, and frogs. The perfect backdrop for kids to wreak havoc on the best week of their year. Besides a handful of teachers there on their own pleasure week, they had a separate building. There was about a dozen counselors and Director Summers. A man named Summers running a summer camp. His parents were psychic. He was exactly who you'd assume would be running a summer camp. Bristly 5 o'clock shadow, jeans that he's been wearing for close to a decade, tan skin, and an air that said he loved fun and could kill a bear with his hands if he needed to. Then there was Cheryl, his assistant. Quite the opposite, really. If she saw a bear, she'd probably die before the bear was within 30 feet of her. Mr. Summers stood on the balcony of the large cabin and shouted down to all of us. Welcome to Camp Rivers Run. It's a pleasure to be your camp director. We have a very exciting week planned, but before we talk about details, I have a few rules to get out of the way. He continued for much longer than was necessary. Don't leave the trails. That was the rule that stuck out. Don't leave the trails. It's pretty straightforward, right? How he said it, though. I realize it doesn't make sense, but it was almost like he was egging us on, daring us to go off the trails. Maybe that was just our teenage brains, but it sounded like a challenge. As we wrapped up, he called out a few of our names to come talk with him and the nurse about their medications. Jasmine was on that list. She looked almost mortified to have her name called out, but then looked embarrassed for everyone to realize she was taking medication. She flipped us off as she left. The teachers didn't seem to notice or care. It was their week off. Even after all these years, she was the same bully. Very little difference, honestly, except her bullying had taken on an even more angsty tone. Sam and I did our best to ignore her whenever we had the chance. It usually made her angrier. But it's harder to bully someone who doesn't acknowledge you. She'd been seeming desperate recently, like she needed for us to respond to her bullying. And the rest of us were led to our rooms in the main cabin. It was awesome. More like a lodge, really. Taxidermy animals hung up on the wall in the main room, which doubled as the cafeteria. Perfect. animals staring down at you when you were trying to find the bathroom at night. Not terrifying at all. There was a large painting hung up above the fireplace. It depicted fishermen and riverboats. One detail stood out to me. There was a young girl on the bottom right of the painting, waving to a boat. Her dad must have been leaving. She was so young, probably wondering if she would ever see him again. There was something in the bush right next to her. I squinted, trying to get a better look. Was that a body of something? I was snapped out of my focus by a door creaking shut. I realized everyone had moved on to a different area of the building. I tried to find them. The lodge felt like a maze of hallways and had to double back several times. After several minutes, I passed a door that was cracked open and heard hushed, angry voices. My curiosity got the better of me and quietly put my ear against the door. It was Director Summers and Jasmine. "I don't care how effective you think you are, you're not doing enough. None of the students take me seriously. It's not my fault." "And how is that not your fault?" "There's only so much bullying I can do without getting parents fed up or people suspicious." "That's our job to deal with. Regardless, we all feel that you have run your course." "Don't say that. I can do it. I'm not ready for another one yet." "Well, what are you willing to do to prove that?" "This week. I'll prove it this week. I'll do something big. You just need to promise no one will get suspicious." "You better. Otherwise, his decision is out of my or any of our control. Make us happy." I heard footsteps and quickly walked away from the door. When I was at the end of the hallway, Jasmine hurried out of the room. She looked livid. "What are you doing, buttlick?" "I'm just looking for the bathroom." "Seriously, Jasmine, it's been years. Can you be any more creative with your insults?" This had the desired effect. Her face went red and she stormed off. I rushed back to my room to fill in Sam on what I'd heard. He was, understandably, confused. "What do you think it means?" "I don't know. First off, how does Mr. Summers even know Jasmine? And why do they seem to have a plan or something with each other?" "Weird. I know one thing. I'm keeping an eye on her." That doesn't sound wise." "Come on! You're the one that always wants to learn more. Plus, if we catch her doing something big, we can go to someone and get her in trouble. Win-win." "I just don't feel good about it." "Well, good thing I'm the one doing it then. What's the worst she could do?" "I'm more worried about Director Summers. Why are they working together? What are they doing?" There was little I could do to stop him. Sam was determined to figure out what Jasmine was up to. Thankfully, I was able to convince him to let it go until tomorrow. We were tired from the trip, and it would be better just to rest. Looking back, maybe I should have let him look into it sooner. Maybe it could have stopped what was coming. There were a few minor activities that afternoon. Swimming in the pool, a table tennis tournament, and, of course, a campfire. As the day continued, I'd half convinced myself that I'd misheard most of the conversation. It just didn't make sense for an adult to encourage a bully to bully more. There were a lot of things said in that conversation that just didn't make sense. And still don't. But that could just be the faulty memories at work. It was hard to be too worried. Camp had a way of putting everyone's guard down. This was the time for weirdness and wackiness. Of course things were going to seem strange. That evening, Director Summers told us all a scary story by the fire. "It's said that he still lurks in these woods, at night, seeking to prey upon anyone who travels off the path." It was common horror story stuff. According to Summers, there was a cabin deep in the woods that's been abandoned for years. There used to be a fisherman who lived there, but he went missing. It took months for the authorities to learn of his disappearance because he was so remote. But when he hadn't come to the post office to pick up his mail for a while, people started to worry. No one knew what happened to him. And then, people started seeing him. He would be seen standing in the middle of the woods, staring at people as they walked on the path, not blinking. As the years went on, more people reported seeing him. Each time, the description changed. Before long, he wasn't a simple man. He looked more like a bag of skin, draped over a smaller body. Eyes wide and animal. Bones sticking out at weird angles. Was the change in description just people's imaginations? Or was it due to him changing over the years into the monster he'd become? Regardless, whenever someone went missing in the woods, they would blame the fishermen, luring people off the path. I highly doubted that the story was true, but something about the description reminded me of someone. Loose skin over animal-like eyes, joints cracking out of place. My mind briefly remembered a school hallway. But I shivered and looked at the other campers. Many looked terrified, especially the younger ones. Director Summers was grinning the entire time. And he wasn't the only one. Mrs. Nevins, Cheryl, the assistant, Jasmine, all of them smiling, almost like they were enjoying the suffering of the kids. Mr. Summers finished the story almost begrudgingly. Didn't seem like he wanted to stop. He noticed the time and urged us off to bed. That night, we all piled into our shared rooms. 10 bunks for 20 students in the room. I was on the bottom bunk, Sam on the top. I tried to sleep, but the conversation between Jasmine and Summers kept playing in my mind. Sam was snoring above me. What was up with Jasmine? Why was she conspiring with Director Summers? Why did some of them seem happy with the scary story? All of it was fuzzy and moving around in my head. I heard a noise. I quickly looked and, in the darkness, was able to make out one of the boys, sleepily getting out of bed and walking to the door. I couldn't tell which student it was. I figured he must have been going to the bathroom or something. Suddenly, my heart dropped, and my mind flooded with fear. Something was telling me not to let the boy leave the room. I tried to whisper to him, and then he appeared in front of me. I never got a good look at him most nights. Even if I did, his body wasn't usually solid. I mostly saw his sunken, glowing eyes. I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis. I'd had it for years. People don't always see hallucinations with sleep paralysis, but I did. A dark, shadowy figure with glowing eyes staring at me. My muscles were tense, unable to move. My mouth sealed shut, only able to make moaning sounds. I'd named him Somnum, after the Latin, for sleep. Naming him helped, weirdly enough, and took some of the mystery away, which in turn lessened the fear. I almost wasn't afraid of him anymore. He'd been so constant in my life, showing up in the quiet hours of the night when nothing else was awake. I knew I just had to let the moment pass. My brain was between wakefulness and sleep. But the boy left the room. Something terrible was going to happen to him. I tried to yell out to him, but only managed muffled moans. He was gone. The door shut with a quiet click behind him. He was gone. Then I heard the bed above me shift, and Sam plopped to the ground. He was leaving too. No, I squirmed as hard as I could, trying to get Sam's attention. Eyes were drawing closer. I heard whispers from all around me. You can't save him. You can't save them. This is how it must be. He must be satisfied. Please, not Sam. Gritting my teeth, I heaved my stiff body and toppled out of the bed, hitting the ground hard. I gasped. The eyes retreated back into the recesses of my mind. Sam jumped, startled. Denver, are you okay? Don't scare me like that. I gasped. My body could move again. I reached up and grabbed his arm. Don't leave. I don't care how bad you need to go. Don't leave. He stared at me, confused. Let me help you up, man. You okay? Bad dreams. Just don't leave. What is this about? I can't explain. Don't know how. Just trust me. Okay. I won't leave. If I pee tonight, it's your fault. Sam returned to his bed. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I waited for the boy to return. Who had it been? I couldn't remember. I hadn't seen a face. The boy never returned. Around 5 a.m., faintly, very faintly, I heard something. Laughter. In the distance, someone was laughing. Loud, uninterrupted joy. I think it sounded like Summers, but I can't be sure. Part of me wishes I'd run after that boy. Had the guts to do something. But if I had, I don't think I'd be alive today. The morning came, and with it, the realization of who was missing. The adults asked about him at breakfast. No one could answer. No one had seen him. His name was Timothy, and he was one of the 13-year-olds. I didn't mention seeing him leave. I didn't want anyone to know I saw anything and become a target myself. Rumors started circulating. Kids started talking about the fisherman. The fisherman had taken him. My mind remembered the man I saw on the bus, standing in the woods, eyes sunken, body twisted and wrong. What was happening? I looked around and noticed Jasmine was nowhere to be seen either, but no one seemed to notice. Was this her? No, she wouldn't go that far. She was just a bully, wasn't she? What was happening at this camp? I looked over at the table filled with teachers and counselors. Several looked concerned, but Director Summers was smiling. Sam was talking beside me. I'm gonna find him. I quickly turned. Fear gripped my heart. No, you go looking for them, and you're in danger too. I'll be fine. He probably got lost on the trail and is in the woods somewhere. You know me. I'm great with direction. What if it's something more? Let the adults handle it. Yeah, like they've done any good in the past. I can find him. I can feel it. I should have said no. I couldn't. Sam has always been determined. Be safe. You know me? The moment the activities were done that morning, Sam found a way to slip into the woods undetected. He handed me his bag, winked at me. He'd always been braver. Before he left, I mouthed a word to him. Cabin. He knew what I meant. The cabin in the woods. If it was real, something told me Timothy would be there. I looked one last time at him running through the woods. He'd be fine. I'd see him again. I had to. Jasmine had returned. She was hanging out with everyone like she hadn't even been missing. Something was different about her, though. Too confident.
Enough! I don't want to remember. Well, he was stronger than I thought he was going to be. Happy to make your acquaintance, everyone. The name's Sally. And you know, I'd like to give a statement now. The Beating Heartland was written and performed by Denver Baughman. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on whatever streaming platform you are using. Follow us online at The Beating Heartland. Thank you for listening.